The observation deck smelled like filtered air and desperation, though Marcus Webb had long stopped noticing either. He stood with his tablet against the reinforced glass, watching Earth turn below, blue and white and impossibly distant, despite being only 300 kilometers down. His shift ended in 40 minutes. He'd already extended it twice this week. The tremor in his hands had returned. Marcus pressed his palm flat against the cool surface, willing the shake to still. It didn't. 15 years of surgical precision, of microscopic sutures and cellular manipulation, reduced to this. Fingers that betrayed him in the steadiness he'd built his entire identity around. Early onset intention tremor, idiopathic, progressive, career-limiting within 5 years. He'd stopped taking the medication 3 months ago, not from defiance, from acceptance. "You're early," he said without turning. "You're late. Doctor." Sarah Chen crossed to stand beside him, her reflection ghosting over Earth's curve. The council meeting ran over. "They want another evaluation. We've done 6 evaluations. They want a 7th. Marcus finally looked at her. Sarah had always carried herself with controlled intensity, the bearing of someone who'd learned early that authority came from competence, not volume. But lately, something had shifted in the way she held her shoulders. "She hasn't agreed to anything yet," Marcus said. "No, but they're deciding tomorrow, isolation or deportation." The words hung between them. Below, Earth continued its rotation, indifferent to the crisis unfolding in its orbit. "She's in Medical 3, Sarah said quietly. "I thought you'd want to know." Marcus checked his tablet. His shift had officially ended. He should go to his quarters, sleep the shallow sleep that had become his baseline. Instead, he nodded. "I'll handle it." Medical 3 existed in permanent sterility, all white surfaces and calibrated lighting. Vereth sat on the examination platform, perfectly still in the way only she could manage. A motionlessness so complete it seemed to bend the air around her. Marcus felt it the moment he entered, the loosening in his shoulders, the way his breath deepened, the tremor in his hands smoothing into steadiness. His body recognized her before his mind caught up. "Doctor." "Webb?" Her voice came through the translation device, rendering her language into approximating English. "You've extended your shift again." Not a question. She always knew. Marcus moved through the standard protocol, vitals, tissue scans, all unnecessary. They'd established months ago that Vereth's biology remained stable, but protocol provided structure, and structure provided distance. Except distance didn't work. Not with her. "The council is meeting," Vereth said. "They're deciding my future." Marcus adjusted the scanner, studying her biosignature rather than meeting those black eyes. "They're exploring options." "Options." She repeated the word like she was tasting it. "In my language, we have 17 words for different types of confinement. Your language uses one. Isolation, as if all separations are equivalent. What are the other 16? Verath tilted her head, joints bending in ways human necks couldn't replicate. "There is Keshal, which means being set apart because you are needed but cannot be touched. Being essential and forbidden simultaneously." Marcus's hands stilled. "Keshal?" "Yes. Which one are they offering me?" "I think you already know." The scanner completed its cycle, all readings normal. Verath remained exactly what she'd always been, biologically stable and fundamentally disruptive to every human system designed to contain her. Marcus set the equipment aside. Instead of leaving, he found himself moving closer. Not touching, but close enough to feel the subtle temperature shift her body radiated. "Why did you come here?" His voice came out rougher than intended. "You had to know what would happen." Vereth was silent for a long moment. "On my world there was a conflict. Those who could calm were being used to suppress dissent, to make others compliant without choice. I could have stayed, or I could leave. So you chose exile. I chose separation without return." She shifted. "I did not expect to find Keshal waiting instead." Marcus understood then. She'd fled one cage only to find another, and humanity, well-intentioned and terrified, was building her confinement from protocols and safety measures. His hand had drifted forward without permission, hovering near hers. Close enough that he could feel the pull, the somatic certainty that contact would ease something wound tight for so long. He pulled back. "The council meets tomorrow," he said. "They'll want your answer. Dolmir or Keshal? Verath's head tilted. These are not choices. They are surrenders with different names. Marcus had no response. Because she was right. He left Medical 3 with his hands steady and his chest aching. The tremor returned before he reached the corridor's end. Sarah's quarters looked like Marcus's. Standardized lunar housing, functional and impersonal. But where Marcus kept his space empty, Sarah had accumulated artifacts. A book, a struggling plant, a photograph of Earth. She reviewed psychological evaluations when her door chimed. She knew who it was. Come in, Marcus. He entered looking haggard, hands shaking. Sarah noticed everything now. The way proximity to Verath reset his physiology, how the effects lasted exactly 3 hours. I examined her, Marcus said. She's stable. I know. Sarah, don't. She closed her tablet too forcefully. We've had this conversation 6 times. Then we'll have it 7. Sarah stood, needing movement. The council's leaning toward isolation, comfortable quarters, full medical support. She'd have everything except freedom. We're already dependent. The admission hung in the air. Sarah turned to face him. Marcus stood in the center of her quarters, hands clenched, tremor visible. How long since you took your medication? She asked quietly. 93 days. Marcus, it doesn't work anymore. But 15 minutes with her. He opened his hands, demonstrating the steadiness. This works. Sarah crossed to him, stopping at arm's length. What do you feel? Marcus's jaw worked. Like I'm finally breathing at the right rhythm. Like my body has been operating at the wrong frequency and she's... Correction. And I know that's biology exploiting my physiology. But it feels like relief. Sarah felt the words like pressure. Because she understood completely. Her own sessions with Verath had become the center point around which her days organized. We can't let her into general population, Sarah said. The competition would be immediate. So we cage her. So we protect everyone. From what? From being needed. Marcus's voice cracked. We're doing the same thing they did, different words, same cage. Sarah wanted to argue, but Marcus was looking at her with something raw that bypassed her professional training. What do you want me to say? I want you to admit you feel it too, that you're counting hours until your next session. Sarah's breath caught. Yes, she said. I feel it, every session. And afterward, when it fades, Marcus's hand rose between them, tremoring. We're going to recommend isolation anyway, aren't we? Yes, because the alternative destroys the fragile stability humanity has built. The logic was perfect, and it felt like ashes. Marcus's hand dropped. I should sleep. He left, and Sarah stood feeling the weight of tomorrow's meeting. Her next session with Verath was scheduled for 14 hours from now. She'd already checked 3 times. The council chamber occupied Luna's central hub, where Earth dominated the viewport. Verath sat across from 7 officials, their bodies oriented toward her. Subtle leans, eye contact held too long. Marcus stood against the back wall. Sarah sat at the council table. Director Chen led the proceedings. We've reviewed all evaluations. Your presence poses no direct threat. You've violated no laws. But your effect on human physiology creates complications our laws didn't anticipate. Verath sat motionless. I understand. You must balance individual rights against collective stability. Yes, Director Chen glanced at Sarah. Dr. Chen has prepared our findings. Sarah activated the display. Data bloomed. Neural activity, psychological assessments. Every human exposed to you shows measurable physiological changes. Pain reduction, anxiety dissolution. The effects last approximately 3 hours. Extended exposure creates dependency patterns. Verath listened without reaction. Staff scheduling has become problematic, Sarah continued. Competition for duties requiring proximity, professional boundaries deteriorating. Your presence destabilizes human social structures. So you recommend isolation, Verath said flatly. We recommend a managed environment that protects both you and human populations. Keshal, Verath said. The translation rendered it as sacred distance. In my language. Sarah's fingers tightened on her tablet. If you prefer that term. I don't prefer it, I recognize it. Verath leaned forward slightly. You believe this is protection. But protection and imprisonment, differ only in what story you tell afterward. Around the table, officials shifted. The alternative would create conflicts humanity can't manage, Director Chen said. So my freedom is the price of your peace. Your isolation is the price of preventing conflict that would devastate both species. Verath was silent. In your protected environment, would I be alone? Sarah consulted her notes. You would have supervised visitors, medical staff, researchers, interaction limited to prevent dependency. So I would see humans, in controlled intervals, for as long as you deem safe. Yes. And when the interval ends, when the person is pulled away mid-sentence because 15 minutes have elapsed. Verath paused. What happens to the incomplete connections? No one answered. Marcus felt something crack in his chest. He knew that loneliness, had carried it for years. May I speak? Marcus heard himself say. Director Chen frowned. Dr. Webb, you're here as medical consultant. I'm here as someone who has experienced the effect directly, who understands what we're asking her to accept. He stepped forward. Director, you're right that her presence creates dependency. I am dependent. But Verath isn't a drug we regulate through dosage. She's a person who fled exploitation only to face another version. The silence felt crushing. Your personal situation does not change the broader implications, Director Chen said. No, it just makes me honest about what we're doing. Marcus looked at Verath. I'm sorry. For all of us. Director Chen stood. We'll take a brief recess. When we reconvene, we'll need your formal response, Verath. The council filed out, leaving Verath with Sarah and Marcus. I should go, Sarah said. But she didn't move. Marcus crossed to Verath. They're not wrong about the danger, but they're not right either, about isolation being protection. Verath looked up. In my language, we have a saying, the cage that claims kindness cuts deeper than the cage that admits cruelty. Sarah moved closer. Is there a third option? Yes, Verath said, but it requires trust humanity has not earned. On my world, those who could calm were integrated through bonds. Chosen relationships with specific individuals who understood the effect and accepted it consciously. It prevented chaos while allowing connection. But it only worked when both parties had agency. Bonds, Sarah repeated. Partnerships. Explicitly negotiated. Limited in number. Voluntary on both sides. Verath turned from the window. But your protocols would never allow it. Marcus felt the idea settle. Chosen bonds. It was dangerous. It violated every protocol. It was also the only option that treated Verath as a person. They'll never approve it, Sarah said. I know. Verath's voice carried sadness. So I will choose. Keshal or Dolmir. The door chimed, the council returning. We are prepared to hear your decision, Director Chen said. Verath turned from the window. I choose to accept your terms, with a modification. We are not negotiating, Director Chen said. You should be. Verath approached. Isolation won't eliminate the effect. It will only concentrate it among staff you assign. You'll have created a smaller cage with the same problems. Silence. Marcus watched the officials realize she was right. What do you propose? Sarah asked carefully. Voluntary bonds. 3 individuals. Chosen consciously, rotated regularly. They would provide support and study the effect. No exposure quotas. Just honest acknowledgement that what happens between us is partnership. Who would agree to such an arrangement? Director Chen asked. I would. Marcus's voice cut through the room. I volunteer. Sarah's face went pale. Marcus, you can't. I can. My condition provides measurable baseline and improvement. I understand the risks. He met Director Chen's gaze. You want data on the effect. I'll give you perfect data, 3 months. If it works, you have a model. If it fails, you have evidence for isolation. You're already dependent, Sarah said. I'm already counting hours between sessions. At least this way, I'm doing it consciously. Director Chen stood. This requires discussion. They filed out. Sarah rounded on Marcus. What are you doing? Making a choice that has agency instead of pretending I'm in control. You're volunteering to be a test subject. I'm volunteering to be honest about what's already happening. He moved closer. Sarah, you're arguing against this while counting down to your next session just like I am. Sarah's shoulders sagged. This is insane. Yes, but it's less insane than the alternative. Verath had remained silent. Dr. Webb, you don't have to do this for me. I know I'm doing it for me, because I'm tired of pretending competence is the same as wholeness. The door opened. Director Chen entered. If you're serious about this proposal, we need comprehensive protocols tonight. I can have frameworks ready in 3 hours, Sarah said quietly. 3 hours then. He left. Sarah sat, tablet already open. Marcus remained with Verath. You should rest, Verath said. I won't sleep. No, but you should try. As she passed, her hand hovered near his shoulder. Thank you for the honesty. Then she was gone. Marcus sat with Sarah. Sarah didn't look up. You know this changes everything. Yes. Are you scared? Terrified, but less than I was yesterday. Sarah finally looked at him. I'll build the best protocols I can, but if this fails, I will pull you out. He reached across, covering her hand with his. The tremor visible. Thank you. They sat that way, two people trying to build something stable from materials that kept shifting. Then Sarah returned to her work. Marcus stood and left. He didn't sleep, but he tried. The habitat they'd constructed occupied a converted research module, larger than standard quarters, smaller than freedom. One main room, a sleeping area, a medical station with monitoring equipment, and a window showing Earth's curve. Marcus entered, carrying a single bag. Everything he owned could be listed on one hand. Verath stood at the window. Dr. Webb. Marcus. If we're doing this, we should use names. Marcus. She tested the word. In my language, names have function markers. My name means dedicated to Mars, god of war. My mother chose it because she thought I'd be a fighter. Are you? Marcus's hands stilled. No, I'm someone who learned to surrender gracefully. Then why are you here? Maybe it's a different kind of surrender, accepting what I need instead of pretending I don't. The protocols were comprehensive. 4-week rotations. Marcus would live in the module full-time. Verath would spend structured time here daily. The council approved this with conditions, Marcus said. Daily psychological evaluations, weekly neural mapping. If dependency exceeds thresholds, the experiment terminates. And deportation becomes my only option. Yes. Verath moved closer. These instruments measure biochemistry, but they can't measure what matters. What matters? Whether what develops between us is partnership or prison. The question landed like a physical thing. I don't know, he said finally. I think I'm here because it's the most honest option. But honest isn't the same as free. No, but it's a beginning. The monitoring equipment beeped. Marcus checked the display. His tremor registered at usual severity. We should establish ground rules, he said. I'd like to hear what you recommend. Not Sarah's protocols. What would make this feel like partnership to you? Marcus set the tablet down. Honesty. About what I'm feeling. What's happening to me physiologically. No performance. He paused. And the same from you. If I'm vulnerable, I need to know it's mutual. I am choosing it. You're the first human who acknowledged I have choices. Verath moved to the seating area. In my language, there is a phrase, keleshma, wound sharing, the practice of showing vulnerability to create equity in relationships where power is unbalanced. Something in Marcus's chest loosened. He sat across from her. My wound is obvious. He held up his tremoring hands. Neurological condition, progressive, career-ending. I've built my identity around precision, and I'm watching it deteriorate. And you believe proximity to me is weakness. Yes. My wound, Verath said quietly, is that I have never been chosen for who I am. Only for what I do. When I refused to use it for suppression, I became worthless. Exile was not punishment. It was discard. Marcus felt the words settle. So we're both here because we're tired of being useful without being seen. Yes. The monitoring equipment hummed. Marcus's tremor had already decreased by 40%. I'm going to feel better around you, he said, steadier. That's going to make me want to be near you constantly. And I'm going to know that your presence is at least partially driven by need rather than choice. Verath's voice carried resignation. This is the wound we share. The uncertainty of whether we're choosing each other or using each other's presence. Keleshma, Yes. They sat in silence. The equipment tracked everything, but it couldn't measure what Marcus felt, the strange relief of being known. If the experiment succeeds, Vereth said, what happens to me then? Do I spend the rest of my life cycling through volunteers? Marcus hadn't let himself think that far. I don't know. The protocols only cover the experimental period. After that, I'm a problem humanity has solved through careful management. I get to exist, but only in this narrow space. The bitterness was unmistakable. Marcus felt it like accusation. I'm sorry. You fled exploitation and found a different version. Yes, but you at least are honest about it. That matters. Marcus's hands had stopped trembling completely. He flexed his fingers, marveling at the steadiness. It would last 3 hours after she left. He was dependent. Explicitly, measurably dependent. And for the first time, he wasn't pretending otherwise. Week 3 brought unexpected warmth. The temperature control had malfunctioned, raising the baseline to oppressive. Maintenance promised repairs within 48 hours. Verath arrived wearing minimal clothing, practical adjustment. Her translucent skin showed more of the underlying structure Marcus had only glimpsed before. I apologize, she said, if this makes you uncomfortable. Marcus, who'd stripped down to basic undershirt, shook his head. We're both just surviving the heat. They settled into their routine, coffee, window, conversation. But the heat added new dimension. Marcus was acutely aware of his own sweat. Aware, too, of Verath's coolness. May I? She gestured to the space beside him. Of course. She settled close. The temperature differential was immediately noticeable, her skin drawing heat like natural cooling. Marcus felt his breath slow. Better? She asked. Yes. You? Your warmth is pleasant. More alive. They sat watching Earth turn. The intimacy was physical, unavoidable, but it didn't feel invasive. Marcus was aware of every point of contact, shoulder against shoulder, thigh pressed to thigh, the unconscious synchronization of their breathing. I've been thinking about partnership, Vereth said. What it means when one person provides something the other needs, whether that creates equity or imbalance. And what have you concluded? That it depends on acknowledgement. If I provide relief and you pretend you don't need it, that's imbalance. But if you need it and I choose to provide it, knowing what I'm giving, that could be partnership. Marcus considered this. I need this, he said quietly. Need you. Your presence. The steadiness. And I've spent months trying to dress that need in professional language because admitting it felt like failure. And now I'm trying to accept that needing isn't failure. Verath shifted, adjusting their position. Her head came to rest against his shoulder, not romantic exactly, but intimate. On my world we have concept, telresh, physical partnership, bodies arranged for mutual benefit. It's not sexual, it's practical intimacy. Telresh. Yes, I think we practice telresh now. Marcus lifted his arm slowly and settled it around her shoulders. The gesture felt enormous, but it also felt right. Verath relaxed into the contact, her coolness against his warmth creating equilibrium. They stayed that way for hours, talking sometimes, silent others. The monitoring equipment documented everything. When Sarah arrived for her check-in, she found them on the couch, Marcus's arm around Verath's shoulders, both drowsing. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, because the data she'd been tracking suddenly felt inadequate. Sarah cleared her throat. Sorry to interrupt. Marcus stirred carefully. Just staying cool. I see that. Sarah checked the monitoring equipment. Everything within normal ranges. Better than normal. How are you feeling? Steady, comfortable. He glanced at Verath. We were talking about telresh, physical partnership. Is that what this is? The question hung there, not hostile but probing. I think so, Marcus said. The temperature created practical need, but we're not pretending it's only practical. Sarah set her tablet down. I'm supposed to be tracking warning signs, but looking at this, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be preventing anymore. Chaos, Vereth said quietly. You're preventing the broader chaos. That's still valid. But what develops in this controlled space, that's different question. Join us, Vereth said. Sarah blinked. What? The heat is oppressive for you too. The protocols say nothing about physical proximity during check-ins. Verath shifted, creating space. Practice Telresh with us, Sarah. Be honest about the exchange. Sarah looked torn. Marcus saw the moment she made her choice. She crossed to the couch, settling into the space. The relief on Sarah's face was immediate. Her shoulders dropped. Her breathing deepened. They sat together, three beings sharing space, honest about the comfort they took, not performing independence, just existing in truth. Outside, Earth turned. Inside, something shifted. Small recalibration of what was possible. Week 6 brought emergency council meeting. Sarah stood before the assembled officials. Director Chen led. Dr. Chen, your report indicates concerning patterns, extended physical contact, emotional language, and... He pulled up an image, the three of them on the couch. Inappropriate fraternization. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. That's not fraternization, that's... Exactly what we were trying to prevent, Dr. Reeves interrupted. The boundaries were arbitrary, Sarah said. Designed to prevent chaos, yes, but also to avoid admitting that what happens is relationship. She activated her tablet. Look at the actual metrics. Marcus's condition has stabilized. The dependency is real, but it's stable. For now, Dr. Reeves said. But what happens when the experiment ends? We'll address that when... That's not good enough. We need exit strategies. Then don't end the experiment. Sarah heard her desperation. Give us more time. Director Chen set down his tablet. Dr. Chen, are you asking us to make the experimental protocols permanent? Sarah hesitated. Yes. The silence felt crushing. You understand what you're proposing, Director Chen said, that we acknowledge the bonds as legitimate relationships. I understand. I believe Marcus was deteriorating before Verath arrived. What you're seeing now isn't dependency creating damage. It's dependency managing damage that was already there. The council was quiet. I'd like to speak with Dr. Webb, Director Chen said. Alone. Marcus arrived 30 minutes later. Director Chen gestured to a seat. I need you to help me understand what's happening here. Marcus studied the image. We're practicing Telresh, physical partnership. That's not medical supervision, that's intimacy. Yes. And you don't see a problem? Marcus met his gaze. I see a problem with pretending it's anything else. You provide her with connection she's literally evolved to seek. That's biological imperative dressed as choice. So is human attraction, human bonding. Marcus leaned forward. Every relationship has biological components. That doesn't make them less real. Director Chen was quiet. Then, if I end this experiment now, what happens to you? My tremor returns within 3 hours. My career continues toward unemployment. I experience psychological withdrawal that would be significant but not permanent. And emotionally, Marcus paused. Emotionally, I lose the first real connection I've had in years, where I'm not performing competence, so emotionally it would be significant. But you'd survive. Physically? Yes. Emotionally? Survival isn't the same as living. The words hung between them. I remember when the contact wars ended, Director Chen said quietly. There was debate about whether relationships between species should be permitted. We decided that adults capable of informed consent should have freedom to form whatever relationships they chose. Marcus felt something shift. Are you saying? I'm saying the experiment has provided data we needed. That your dependency appears sustainable. That what you're building looks like partnership. Director Chen pulled up files. I'm recommending we shift from experimental protocols to managed integration. The monitoring continues, but not as experiment. As support. Marcus couldn't breathe. You're approving it. I'm approving continuation with modified framework. You and Verath can maintain your bond. He met Marcus's eyes. But understand, you're pioneering territory we don't have maps for. I understand. Marcus left with his hands trembling, not from his condition but from weight. He went directly to the habitat, found Verath at the window. They approved it, Marcus said. The council, they're making the bonds permanent. We can continue, officially. Verath was silent for a long moment. Then, I have spent my entire life being what others needed, function without choice. Even coming here I expected only different cage. But you... Her voice carried something Marcus had never heard. Hope. You chose me, not for what I provide for Keleshmar. Marcus crossed to her, taking her cool hands in his tremoring ones. We chose each other. That matters more than the mechanism. They stood at the window together, holding hands, watching Earth turn. It wasn't resolution, it was recognition. And for now, that was enough. Week 12 brought the second volunteer. Dr. Amara Okafor arrived with chronic anxiety disorder that had resisted treatment for 15 years. She'd reviewed all the data, understood the risks, and volunteered. The habitat had been expanded. Marcus maintained his primary bond while Amara integrated. Vereth handled the addition with grace, but Marcus noticed subtle signs, the way she held herself more carefully, the slight hesitation. "How are you managing?" he asked one morning, while they prepared coffee. "It's different. Not worse. Just multiplied." Vereth measured grounds with precision. "With you, I've developed understanding. With Amara, I'm starting over while maintaining old patterns. Is it too much?" "I don't know yet." She poured water. "My species evolved to calm multiple individuals simultaneously, but we evolved to do it for survival, not connection. This is different." Amara arrived mid-morning, looking nervous. She was younger than Marcus, early 30s, with careful control that marked someone managing invisible burdens. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all." Vereth gestured to the seating area. They settled into configuration that felt awkward, but Amara's anxiety was palpable, her hands clasped tightly. And Vereth's presence began its work. Marcus watched Amara's shoulders drop, her breathing deepen. Recognition crossed her face. "It's..." Amara's voice cracked. "I didn't think it would be this immediate." "It usually is," Marcus said quietly. They sat together while Amara processed her first exposure. Marcus found himself watching Vereth, noting the way she oriented toward Amara while maintaining awareness of his presence, distributing attention. After an hour, Amara left. Vereth and Marcus remained. "You're exhausted," Marcus said. "Yes?" "Is this sustainable?" Vereth was quiet. "I don't know. Adding Amara is manageable, but the Council wants data on whether this scales. Eventually, I'll be distributing myself across enough bonds that none can deepen, and that's just another version of isolation, being needed by many while belonging to none." The words hit Marcus hard. "We need to tell the Council. Set limits. And if they refuse?" Marcus didn't have answer. The conversation with Sarah happened in her quarters at midnight. "The Council wants proof this scales," Sarah said. 2 volunteers is beginning. They're already discussing 4, 6. "But it's not sustainable," Vereth said. "Not if you want the bonds to be partnership. I can provide physiological relief to many, but I can only practice Keleshmar with few." Sarah set her tablet aside. "I know, but people are suffering. We have someone who can help." "No," Marcus said firmly. "It means acknowledging that Vereth is person, not medical intervention, that she has limits. And if the Council disagrees, then we're back to the original problem. Vereth becomes resource to be optimized." Sarah looked between them. "I'll advocate for limits, 3 bonds maximum, but I can't guarantee the Council will accept it." They spent 2 days documenting everything: Vereth's energy levels, the quality of interactions, Marcus's observations. Sarah compiled it into unflinching report. When they presented to the Council, Director Chen listened carefully. "You're asking us to accept that Vereth has limits," Dr. Reeves said, "but we haven't tested those limits." "No," Marcus agreed, "but it's definitive data on cost. And we're arguing that cost matters. That's a luxury argument." The accusation landed hard. "Because Dr. Reeves was right." "Then let me make argument that isn't luxury," Vereth said quietly. Everyone turned. "On my world, I was valued only for function. I came here hoping for different relationship, and what you've given me has been closest I've come to partnership that acknowledges my limits." She paused. "If you expand bonds indefinitely, you're doing same thing my world did." "And that's exactly what I fled." The chamber was silent. "We'll vote," Director Chen said finally. "Continued monitoring with current 2-bond structure. Re-evaluation in 12 weeks. All in favor?" The vote was split, but it passed. Marcus felt something loosen. Not resolution, just temporary reprieve. When they left, Vereth walked between Marcus and Sarah. "Thank you," Vereth said, for arguing that I have limits worth protecting. They returned to the habitat together. 12 weeks. Then another evaluation, but for now they had space to breathe. Week 20 brought unexpected visitor. Ambassador Kellis from the Unified Stations arrived, requesting immediate meeting with Verath. Marcus and Sarah were excluded. They waited. The meeting lasted 4 hours. When it ended, Verath returned, looking shaken. "What happened?" Marcus asked. Verath moved to the window. "They want to replicate the bonds on the outer stations. They have documented cases, dozens of people suffering, and they've heard about our arrangement. You're considering it. I'm considering whether refusing is ethical, whether protecting what we've built justifies leaving others in pain. But the bonds here require your presence," Marcus said. "If you go, we lose access." "I know." Verath's voice carried grief. "This is the choice I was always going to face." Sarah had gone still. What did the ambassador propose? Rotation system. 3 months on the outer stations, 3 months here, alternating indefinitely. The logic was impeccable, and it would destroy what they'd built. Marcus felt something break. "You want to do this?" "I don't want to choose at all. But if I must." Verath moved closer. "Marcus, you've taught me what partnership means. I cherish that. But I also remember what it felt like to suffer while knowing relief was possible. I can't choose my comfort over others' suffering. This isn't about comfort. It's about sustainability, about protecting bonds that took months to build." "I know." Verath's hands covered his. "But knowing doesn't change what I am. I have capacity to help, Marcus. Refusing to use it because I fear losing what I have, that's privilege I'm not sure I can accept." Sarah stood. "Give us time to prepare. Don't decide tonight. The ambassador needs answer within 48 hours. Then we have 48 hours. Sarah was already pulling up her tablet. They worked through the night, Sarah building protocols, Marcus documenting everything about their bond, trying to create map that might make resumption possible, but maps couldn't capture what mattered. When dawn arrived, they'd created comprehensive framework. It was professional, thorough, completely inadequate. Verath reviewed it. "Thank you for trying." "Is it enough?" Marcus asked. She looked at him. "No, but nothing would be." The 48 hours passed. When Verath came back, her expression told them everything. "I accepted the rotation, with modifications. 4 months here, 2 months on outer stations. Enough time to establish bonds without abandoning what I've built." Marcus felt the words like physical blow. "When do you leave?" 6 weeks, Sarah stood. "I'll start updating protocols." She left. Marcus remained with Verath in crushing silence. "I'm sorry," Verath said quietly. "Don't be. You made choice that honors who you are." They sat together, watching Earth turn, counting down 6 weeks. Marcus felt his hands trembling, not from the condition, from grief. 6 weeks became countdown. Marcus and Verath moved through days with heightened awareness, every moment carrying weight of impending absence. Amara integrated more fully, her bond developing different character, less physical proximity, more verbal exchange. She'd been a linguist before anxiety derailed her career. Sarah visited more frequently, no longer maintaining professional distance. She'd finally admitted she was as dependent as Marcus. "I keep trying to build protocols that make 2-month absence survivable," Sarah said one evening. "But I think I'm just avoiding accepting there's no good way to do this." "No," Verath agreed, "there isn't. Vreshtal, the grief of having to choose between bonds. I carry it constantly now." One night, late, Marcus asked the question he'd been avoiding. "Are you okay, really okay?" Verath was quiet. "I don't know. I'm doing what I came here to do, practicing partnership. But I'm also becoming exactly what I fled. Distributed across bonds I've chosen, yes, but distributed nonetheless. And I'm tired, Marcus. Then say no to the rotation, stay here, and abandon people who need help I could provide? Yes, if that's what survival requires." He turned to face her. "Verath, you're allowed to prioritize your well-being. In my culture, boundaries are considered weakness. Your culture exiled you for refusing to participate in suppression. Maybe their teachings about obligation aren't worth preserving." Verath's expression shifted, surprise or recognition. I've never thought of it that way. You don't owe humanity infinite access. But if I stay, people suffer. People are always suffering somewhere. You can't prevent all suffering by distributing yourself infinitely. The words hung in the air. I've already accepted the rotation, she said finally. Backing out now would damage trust. So you sacrifice yourself to preserve diplomatic relationship. I sacrifice immediate depth to build foundation for broader model. If rotation works, then maybe others of my species could join me. Marcus heard the hope. It was noble, selfless, completely unsustainable. Promise me something, he said. What? Promise that if it becomes too much, if the rotation starts destroying you, you'll stop. Verath was quiet. Then, I promise to try. That's all I can offer. It wasn't enough, but it was honest. The final week arrived. They spent it building memories, cooking together, long conversations. Hours of simple proximity. On the last night, Sarah organized small gathering. Just 4 people sharing final evening. They didn't talk about the rotation. Just existed together in moment that was already memory. When Amara and Sarah left, Marcus and Verath remained at the window. I'm scared, Marcus admitted. Of what? That 2 months will be too long, that we'll forget how to be together. Verath's hand found his. I'm scared of that too. But I'm also scared that if I don't go, I'll spend rest of my life wondering if I chose comfort over courage. So we're both scared. Yes. Keleshmar. Our shared wound is fear of loss we're choosing anyway. They sat in silence. Marcus felt the weight of impending separation, but beneath the fear ran something else. Gratitude. They'd built something real. I'll miss you, Marcus said. I'll miss you too. They held hands at the window. Earth turned below. Tomorrow Verath would leave. Tomorrow Marcus would begin learning to function without the steadiness. But tonight, they were together. It wasn't enough, but it was real. The transport departed at dawn. Marcus didn't go to the docking bay. Instead, he stayed in the habitat, feeling the moment she left like physical thing. The tremor returned within 3 hours. Sarah visited that evening, finding Marcus at the window, hands shaking. She sat beside him. How bad is it? She asked. Manageable for now. Marcus flexed his fingers. The physical symptoms are expected. It's the emotional absence that's harder. Yes. They sat in silence. Sarah's presence helped some. Not the same somatic settling, but comfort of shared grief. I keep forgetting she's not coming back in an hour, Sarah admitted. 2 months. 61 days. I've started counting. Marcus smiled despite everything. Me too. The days developed new rhythm, slower, more deliberate. Marcus and Sarah and Amara orbiting the empty space. Amara took it hardest. Her anxiety, managed for weeks, returned with crushing force. She started having panic attacks. Sarah adjusted her medications, but nothing replaced what Verath had offered. I hate being dependent on her, Amara said one afternoon. We are all counting days, Marcus said quietly. It doesn't make us weak, just honest about what we need. Week 3 brought message. Verath, checking in from the outer stations. She'd successfully bonded with 2 individuals. The rotation was working. Marcus read it alone, felt relief that she was safe, felt joy that she was helping people, felt sharp pain that she was building bonds with others while he counted days. The jealousy surprised him. Sarah found him that evening. Bad news? Good news. The rotation's working. She's established bonds. That's what we wanted, isn't it? Yes. Marcus set the tablet aside. I just didn't expect to feel this jealous. Sarah sat across from him. I've been feeling that too, and I hate it, because it means I've started seeing Verath as mine. They sat with that truth. The weeks crawled. Marcus's tremor progressed, returned to baseline. His life existed in suspended animation. Week 8 brought another message, longer this time. Verath describing her work, the bonds she was building. But beneath professional update ran something else. Exhaustion, doubt. I miss you, she wrote. Miss the depth we'd built. The work here matters, but so did what we had. And I'm not sure I can maintain both. Marcus read it 3 times. We're counting days, he wrote back. 23 until you return. We miss you too. The response came hours later. 23 days, I'll be there. The final week brought nervous energy. Marcus and Sarah and Amara preparing the habitat. What if it's different? Amara asked. What if she comes back and we've all changed too much? Then we rebuild, Marcus said. The day finally arrived. Marcus waited in the habitat. When the door opened and Verith entered, Marcus felt his breath catch. She looked exhausted. Marcus! Her voice carried profound relief. He crossed to her without thinking. Just movement, born from 2 months collapsing into presence. They didn't speak. Just stood together, close enough that he felt the immediate somatic response. Tremor smoothing, breath deepening. I'm sorry, Verith said finally, for leaving, for believing I could distribute myself without cost. Don't apologize. I just missed you. I missed you too, more than I thought possible. They moved to the window together. Everything felt different, changed by absence. The rotation worked, Verith said. I helped people, built bonds that matter. But Marcus, it cost more than I anticipated. The constant recalibration, the exhaustion. What are you saying? She turned to face him. I'm saying we need to modify the structure. The current rotation isn't sustainable. I need longer periods here, better boundaries. Have you talked to the council? Not yet. Wanted to talk to you first. To see if... She paused. To see if what we had was still here. Marcus took her hands. It's still here. Changed, maybe. But here. Verith's shoulders dropped, relief visible. Thank you. They sat together. Not talking, just present, rebuilding connection that absence had tested, but not destroyed. 2 months had felt impossible, but they'd survived. The council meeting came 2 weeks after Verith's return. Marcus, Sarah, and Amara attended alongside Verith, united front, presenting evidence that structure needed modification. Director Chen listened. The data showed clear patterns. Withdrawal had been significant but manageable for Marcus and Sarah, destructive for Amara. Reunion had restored function quickly, but Verith's exhaustion markers were alarming. What do you propose? Director Chen asked. 6 months here, 6 weeks on outer stations, Verith said. Enough time to deepen existing bonds and recover. The outer stations bonds would be maintained through remote check-ins and brief visits. That significantly reduces your capacity. Yes, but it acknowledges my actual capacity rather than optimal capacity we wish I had. I can provide brief interventions, but I cannot sustain the same depth there. Dr. Reeves leaned forward. You're asking us to prioritize your existing bonds over potential new ones. I'm asking you to prioritize sustainability over optimization. Verith paused. And I'm asking you to recognize that I have limits worth protecting, even if those limits mean helping fewer people. The council deliberated privately. Marcus and the others waited. When they were called back, Director Chen's expression was unreadable. We've reviewed your proposal. The council has decided to approve modified rotation with probationary monitoring. 6 months primary residence on Luna. 6 weeks deployment to outer stations with quarterly evaluations. Marcus felt something loosen. Not complete victory. Verith would still leave periodically, but manageable absence. However, Director Chen continued, this approval comes with conditions. First, establish clear protocols for outer stations bonds during extended absences. Second, develop training programs so local practitioners can provide support between visits. Third, accept that if depletion markers worsen, we will require further reduction. I accept, Verith said immediately. Then we're adjourned. They left with profound relief. 6 months. Enough time to deepen bonds, to recover, to build sustainable rhythm. In the corridor, Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm. We actually did it. For now, Marcus said. We still have to prove it's sustainable. But we have time to prove it. They returned to the habitat together, all 4 of them. Over the following weeks, they established new rhythm. Mornings at the window, shared meals, long conversations. Verith seemed lighter, the exhaustion slowly lifting as she recovered. One evening, Marcus asked the question he'd been carrying. Do you regret it, coming here? Verith was quiet. No. Coming here gave me something I'd never had. Choice. That matters more than the complications. Even when the complications feel overwhelming. Even then. She turned to face him. On my world I had no choice. Here I have difficult choices. But having choice, that's freedom, Marcus. Sarah arrived with coffee, settling beside them. Amara joined, carrying data tablets. They arranged themselves naturally, bodies in Telresh, mutual support, honest about the exchange. "I've been thinking," Sarah said, "about what we've built here, about whether it's replicable." "And?" Marcus asked. "And I think it is, with modifications, with honest acknowledgement of complications, with people willing to navigate dependency without pretending it's simple." She paused. "We've proven that bonds can work, that Verath can maintain multiple partnerships without them becoming exploitative. Mostly," Amara interjected, "we're still working on the possessive part." "Mostly," Sarah agreed, "but we're trying." They sat together, watching Earth turn. Marcus's hands were steady. His career remained uncertain. Tremor would return when Verath left. But he'd started exploring other options. Teaching, research. Verath had taught him that needing help wasn't failure, that dependency could be honest without being destructive. "I'm leaving in 4 months," Verath said quietly. 6 weeks. The announcement landed like stone, but this time Marcus didn't panic. "We'll be ready," he said. "Will we?" "We'll try. That's all we can promise." The weeks unfolded. They built memories that would sustain them, deepened bonds that would survive interruption. When Verath finally left, Marcus stood at the window watching the transport disappear. His hands had already started trembling, would continue for 6 weeks. Then she'd return. It wasn't perfect, wasn't easy, but it was real, it was honest, it was partnership that acknowledged its complications without reducing to them. And standing there with Sarah and Amara beside him, all of them counting days, all of them dependent and scared and committed to making this impossible thing work, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not hope that everything would be simple, not hope that dependency would disappear, but hope that they could build sustainable intimacy from complicated materials, that they could be honestly dependent while maintaining agency, that they could choose each other again and again despite the cost. The second rotation came and went. 6 weeks felt manageable when there was something real waiting. Verath returned looking less exhausted, the modified schedule allowing actual recovery. Marcus noticed the difference immediately. She carried herself with more lightness. They fell back into rhythm quickly, mornings at the window, shared meals, comfortable intimacy. "It's working," Verath said one morning, both watching Earth turn. "The new structure. I can maintain the outer station's bonds without depleting myself, and I can deepen what we have here." "Sarah's proposing something to the council," Marcus said. "Expanding the program, bringing in more of your species if any others seek asylum. Creating framework where bonds can be established without requiring one person to be distributed infinitely. And if more come, then we build structure that protects everyone's capacity, that acknowledges limits as part of the model rather than failure." Verath was quiet. "It would mean I'm not alone anymore." Marcus heard the hope, the possibility of community. The door opened. Sarah entered, followed by Amara. "The council approved it," Sarah said without preamble. 3 more of Verath's species have requested asylum. They'll arrive over the next 6 months. 3 more, Verath repeated. Her voice carried something Marcus had never heard before. Joy. 3 more who fled the same conflicts, who want partnership instead of exploitation. Sarah pulled up her tablet showing profiles. "We'll establish separate habitats, separate bonds, but shared support structure." Marcus watched Verath process this. Saw the exhaustion she'd carried beginning to lift completely. "When do they arrive?" Verath asked. "First one in 2 weeks. Dr. Kenji Sato has already volunteered for bond formation." Amara leaned forward. "This means the model works. What we've built here, it's replicable, sustainable. We're not just experiment anymore, we're proof." The weight of that settled over them. Proof that chosen bonds could work, that explicit dependency could be navigated ethically. That partnership between species with such different needs could be built on foundation of honest acknowledgement. "I want to help," Verath said, "with integration, with teaching the others." "That's exactly what we're hoping," Sarah said. Marcus felt something shift. The bonds they'd built, messy and complicated and dependent, had become template. It wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was real. Over the following months, the community grew. 3 more of Verath's species arrived, each establishing their own bonds. The habitats became small constellation of partnerships. Marcus watched Verath transform. She still maintained her bonds with him, with Sarah, with Amara. Still left for outer stations deployments every 6 months, but now she had community. One evening the 4 of them gathered. Earth turned in the window. "I've been thinking," Marcus said, "about what this all means. Not just for us, but for how humanity understands relationship." "What have you concluded?" Vareth asked. "That we've been pretending independence is strength when really it's just performance. That admitting we need each other, that we're dependent in ways we can't eliminate, that's actually the honest foundation for real partnership." Sarah nodded. "The protocols I designed were all about managing dependency. But what we've learned is that dependency doesn't need to be controlled. It needs to be acknowledged, negotiated, protected. And chosen," Amara added. "That's the part that matters most. Not eliminating need, but choosing to meet it, consciously." Varath shifted, arranging herself between them. "In my language, we have word I haven't told you yet. Kareshtal. It means chosen wound family. The bonds formed through shared practice of Keleshmar, through choosing to be vulnerable together." "Kareshtal," Marcus repeated. The word settled in his chest like recognition, because that's what they'd become. Family. Chosen through vulnerability and sustained through honesty. "When I first arrived," Varath said quietly, "I believed I was choosing between isolation and exploitation, between Keshal and Dolmir, but you've shown me third option, Kereshtal." "We've shown each other," Marcus corrected. "This isn't something you received from us. It's something we built together." "Yes," Varath's voice carried warmth. "Together." They sat in comfortable silence. Outside, Earth continued its rotation. Inside, 4 beings who'd learned to navigate impossible space simply existed together. Marcus's hands were steady, would remain so for approximately 3 hours after Varath left. Then the tremor would return. It was pattern now, familiar. He'd stopped seeing it as weakness, started understanding it as simply truth. He needed her. She needed connection. Sarah needed to stop performing independence. Amara needed to accept that managing anxiety would always require support. And together, they'd built framework where all those needs could be acknowledged without shame. "I'm leaving again in 2 weeks, Varath said. 6 weeks on outer stations." Marcus felt the familiar tightness, but beneath it ran something new, confidence. Not that separation would be easy, but that they would survive it. That reunion would come, that the bonds could withstand interruption because they were founded on truth. "We'll be here when you return," he said. "I know." And she did know. They'd proven it, through absence and reunion, through withdrawal and restoration. They'd proven that Kareshtal could survive what isolation never could. Complicated didn't mean impossible. It just meant real. Sarah stood, stretching. "I should finalize the integration protocols." Amara followed. "I'll help." They left, and Marcus remained with Varath. 2 beings who'd started as doctor and asylum seeker evolved into experimental subjects and emerged as something neither had expected. Partners, friends, Kareshtal. "Thank you," Varath said softly. "For what?" "For choosing me. Not for what I provide. For Kaleshmar." Marcus took her hand, cool fingers against warm palm. "We chose each other. That's what makes it work." They sat together at the window, watching Earth turn, counting down to the next separation and the reunion that would follow. And 2 beings from different worlds practiced the difficult art of being honestly dependent while choosing that dependency. Building partnership from materials no one had quite figured out how to use before. It wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was real. And real, with all its complications and costs and compromises, was exactly what they'd both been searching for. 3 years after Varath's arrival, the lunar facility had become something no one had quite predicted, a model for interspecies partnership that had fundamentally altered humanity's approach to asylum, dependency, and connection. Marcus stood in the observation deck, different one now, larger, overlooking the expanded habitats that housed 8 of Varath's species and their chosen bonds. Sarah joined him at the window. She'd been promoted to Director of Integration Programs. "Big day," she said. "Yes." They were waiting for the Council's decision. 3 years of data. The question, should the model expand to Earth? "Are you nervous?" Sarah asked. Marcus considered. "Yes, but not about the bonds. About whether humanity is ready to acknowledge that dependency can be ethical. The door opened. Verath entered, followed by 3 others of her species. They'd developed community, supporting each other through the exhaustion of being needed. "The council is ready," Verath said. They made their way to the council chamber. Director Chen was still there, older now, but still presiding. "We've reviewed 3 years of comprehensive data," Director Chen began. "The chosen bonds model has proven sustainable. Dependency markers remain stable. Satisfaction metrics exceed any comparable program." He paused. "However, expansion to Earth presents new challenges. Population density, resource competition. Can this model work outside controlled environments?" Verath stood. 3 years had changed her. She carried herself with confidence born from experience. "I cannot promise it will be easy," she said. "The bonds we've built required work. Constant negotiation. But I can promise it's possible. We've proven that explicit acknowledgement of need combined with protection of capacity creates foundation for sustainable partnership. And if bonds form that aren't healthy, then we address them, transparently. We've developed intervention frameworks. We know warning signs." Verath paused. "But we cannot prevent all problems by prohibiting all bonds. That's the logic of Keshal, of isolation. We've proven there's alternative." Marcus found himself standing. 3 years ago, I volunteered for this experiment because I was tired of pretending I didn't need help. I thought that made me weak." He held up his hands, still tremoring. "But I've learned that needing someone doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest. And building partnership around that honesty, that's not exploitation. That's relationship." Sarah stood as well. "The protocols we've developed aren't perfect. But they can create framework where risk is managed through transparency rather than prohibition." Director Chen looked around the chamber. "We're about to make decision that will shape humanity's relationship with asylum seekers for generations." The vote was called. Marcus held his breath. When the results came through, it was overwhelming. Approval for Earthside expansion. 6 months later, Marcus stood in different observation deck, this one on Earth. Verath would arrive tomorrow, beginning her first Earthside rotation. His hands trembled. Would steady tomorrow. Would tremble again when she left. The pattern familiar now. Comfortable even in its discomfort. Sarah joined him. "Amara's doing well. Her bond with Teshin is stable." "Good," Marcus smiled. "She deserves that. We all do." They stood together, watching Earth beneath them rather than above. 3 years. 8 of Verath's species providing bonds. Hundreds of lives changed. Comprehensive model for how dependency could be navigated ethically, and tomorrow it would expand further. Verath had sent message that morning. "Looking forward to Earth, to seeing you, to continuing what we started." Marcus had replied simply, "We'll be ready." Because they would be. Not perfect, not without complications, but ready to continue building something real from complicated materials. The sun set over Earth's horizon. Marcus's hands trembled in the fading light. Tomorrow they would steady. Then tremble again, then steady. The pattern would continue, imperfect, honest, real, and that was enough. 3 years ago, Marcus had volunteered for experiment he didn't fully understand. What he'd found was community, was Kereshtal, was understanding that the thing he'd called weakness was actually just truth, and truth, however complicated, was always worth building on. Earth turned. The habitat waited. And Marcus stood ready to welcome Verath back, not to cure him or fix him, but to practice partnership with him, to share wounds, to build something together that neither could create alone. Keleshmar, wound sharing. It wasn't resolution, it was recognition. And recognition after all this time felt exactly like home.